Have you ever caught your pet staring at nothing? Barking at an empty hallway? Refusing to enter a room they used to love? Some say animals can sense things beyond our human understanding, things we weren't meant to see. Tonight, we dive into 5 chilling stories where pets reacted to something no one else could see. Whether it was a growl, a hiss, or a terrified retreat, their instincts may have saved lives or warned of something much darker. Story 1, the growling under the crib. It started with a sound, a low, guttural growl, deep enough to rattle the baby monitor on the nightstand. Emily sat upright in bed. It was 2:17 a.m. Her husband Drew was still snoring beside her, dead to the world. For a few seconds, she wondered if she had imagined it, a trick of the monitor or the remnants of a dream. But then it came again, louder this time. Closer. Grrr! She threw the covers off and padded quietly to the nursery, her feet cold against the hardwood floor. The baby monitor crackled softly in her hand as she approached the half-open door to their daughter Lila's room. Inside, the dim glow of the nightlight cast a pale blue haze over the crib, stuffed animals, and rocking chair. Everything looked normal, except for Max. Max was their golden retriever. Gentle, loyal, never aggressive. But right now, Max was crouched low to the ground, hackles raised, teeth bared, and a deep growl vibrating from his throat. He was fixated on the space beneath the crib, his entire body tense. Emily's blood ran cold. "Max?" she whispered, barely audible. "What's wrong, boy?" He didn't look at her. He didn't wag his tail. Just kept staring, growling, one paw inching slowly forward. Emily followed his gaze. Beneath the crib, there was nothing, just shadows. She walked in, picked up Lila, who was miraculously still sleeping, and backed out of the room. Max didn't move. He stayed in the nursery, standing guard. Emily placed Lila in the bassinet in her room and woke Drew. "There's something wrong with Max," she whispered, shaking him. "He's growling at Lila's crib." Drew groaned. "It's probably a mouse or something. He gets worked up." "Not like this," she said firmly. "He's scared." Drew finally sat up, rubbed his face, and followed her back to the nursery. But Max wasn't growling anymore. He was lying flat on the floor, whimpering softly, still staring under the crib. Drew knelt beside him and looked under. Nothing. "See?" he said. "Probably a mouse, gone now. I'll set a trap in the morning." But when Emily tried to lead Max out of the room, he wouldn't budge. That night, they let Max stay in the nursery. He didn't sleep. Every few minutes, he growled again, staring at the same spot. Over the next week, Max's behavior became increasingly disturbing. During the day, he acted normal. But the moment it got dark, he became anxious, pacing, barking at corners. He refused to enter the nursery unless someone was with him, and even then, he stayed close to the crib, watching. Then Lila started waking up crying, violently, screaming. Emily would rush in to find her standing up in the crib, pointing at nothing. "Shadows," she would say one night, through sobs. "Mommy, there's shadows in my bed." Emily and Drew were exhausted, desperate. They bought cameras, baby monitors with two-way audio, motion sensors, but nothing ever showed up. Until the night Emily heard whispering. She had just laid Lila down and gone to the kitchen for water when she heard it. A faint, crackly voice through the baby monitor. "Shh! She's sleeping now." Emily dropped the glass. It shattered across the tile. She sprinted down the hallway to the nursery. The door was closed. They never closed the nursery door. She threw it open. Lila was crying. Max was barking furiously, standing on his hind legs, clawing at the crib. Emily rushed in, grabbed her daughter, and turned to find Drew behind her, white as a sheet. "I heard it too," he said. Someone was talking. They called the police. They searched the house top to bottom, every door locked, every window secured. No signs of forced entry. Nothing. The officer suggested it might have been interference on the baby monitor, a neighbor's walkie-talkie, or static that sounded like a voice. But Emily knew, Max knew, Lila knew. They moved Lila's crib into their bedroom that night. Max slept beside her. Things calmed for a few nights. Then one night, the growling returned. Max stared at the closet door. It creaked open slowly, on its own. From inside came a sharp, deliberate click, the sound of something unlocking. Emily screamed. Drew jumped out of bed and slammed the door shut. They barricaded it with a chair. The next morning, they found 3 long, deep scratches on the inside of the closet door. Parallel, vertical, as if something had been trying to claw its way out. They left the house that day and didn't return. They moved in with Emily's parents and listed the house for sale. 2 weeks later, they got a call from a neighbor. "There's been some activity," she said. "Your front porch light keeps flicking on and off. And the dog, Max? I saw him outside your house, just standing there, staring at the front door." That was impossible. Max was with them. They checked. He was asleep at their feet. The police went again. No signs of entry. But the porch camera, still connected to Emily's phone, had recorded something the night before. At 3:12 a.m., the porch light turned on. The camera showed a blurry shape moving across the porch. It stopped at the door, turned, and looked directly at the camera. No face, just shadow. Then a sound. Through the audio. A growl, not Max's, something deeper, more animal. Emily deleted the footage and threw the phone away. To this day, Max refuses to enter any room with a crib, even at other people's houses. He growls and whines until he's removed. Lila doesn't remember the whispers or the shadows, but every now and then in her sleep she murmurs the same phrase. Shh, she's sleeping now. Story 2, Midnight at the Cabin. Ryan and his girlfriend Melissa weren't exactly the outdoorsy types, but after months of city noise and stress, a weekend escape to a remote forest cabin seemed like a great idea. The place was a rental found online, marketed as a peaceful lakeside retreat with no neighbors for miles. The pictures showed a rustic wooden cabin, cozy interior, and a quiet dock stretching out onto a still black lake. Perfect for some much-needed quiet. They arrived just before sunset on Friday. The air was crisp, and the only sounds were the wind through the trees and the soft lapping of water. The nearest town was an hour away, and their phones had lost signal halfway through the drive. But that was part of the charm. No distractions, just nature. The cabin was everything the listing promised. Quaint, quiet, and stocked with firewood. They cooked dinner on a small propane stove, shared wine on the dock, and laughed under the stars. That first night was uneventful, peaceful even. Ryan fell asleep to the sounds of owls and wind. It wasn't until the second night that things started to feel off. Around 11:45 p.m., they were winding down inside. Melissa was brushing her teeth, and Ryan was standing by the fireplace, adding more wood. That's when he noticed their dog, a Labrador named Baxter, growling softly at the front door. Not barking, just a low, tense growl. "There's no one out here," Ryan muttered, peeking through the peephole. Nothing but trees and darkness. But Baxter didn't stop. His ears were back, body stiff, tail low. He took a few steps backward and let out another growl, this one deeper. Melissa came out from the bathroom. "What's up with him?" "Probably a raccoon or something," Ryan replied, though the hairs on his neck were standing up. He opened the door and shined his flashlight outside. The beam illuminated the porch, part of the path, and the surrounding woods. Nothing moved. Still, Baxter refused to approach the door. He whined once and retreated to the far side of the room. They locked the door, shut the blinds, and went to bed, trying to shake off the unease. But the night wasn't over. At 2:13 a.m., Ryan awoke to a soft sound. He turned his head slowly toward the window. The curtains were closed, but there was a faint tap. Not wind, not a branch, a definite tap, tap, tap. Melissa stirred beside him. "You hear that?" Ryan whispered. She nodded. Tap, tap, tap. Very slowly, Ryan got up, heart pounding. He walked toward the window and pulled the curtain aside an inch. There, standing just beyond the porch light, was a man. Not a camper, not a hiker, a man. He was tall, with long dark hair, and wearing a gray jacket soaked through from what must have been rain earlier. His head was tilted to one side, and he was staring directly at the cabin. Ryan backed away. "There's someone out there." Melissa shot upright. "What?" "I don't know who. He's just standing there." They turned off the bedroom light. Ryan grabbed the baseball bat he had brought for protection and slowly crept to the front room. He peeked through the blinds by the door. The man was gone. Baxter whimpered. Melissa joined him seconds later. "We need to call the police." "We don't have signal," Ryan reminded her. Tap. They both turned toward the kitchen window. The man was there, closer, staring inside, no expression, just that tilted head, almost like curiosity or hunger. Ryan whispered, "We need to stay away from the windows." But no matter where they moved, it was as if the man followed. Tap, tap, on the glass behind them, then another window, then another. But he never tried to open a door, never knocked, just watched, tapped, moved. They spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner of the living room, Baxter growling low, Melissa holding her breath, and Ryan clutching the bat like it would actually help. They couldn't sleep. They barely spoke. At dawn, the tapping stopped. When Ryan finally found the courage to step outside, there was no sign of the man. No footprints, no broken branches, no wet spots where someone had stood. Just the eerie quiet of a cold, empty forest. They packed up immediately, tossing their bags into the car and speeding back to town without breakfast. Neither of them said much until they hit signal. Ryan called the rental owner and explained what had happened. The owner sounded tired, but not surprised. "Yeah," he said, "some guests say they've seen him before." "What?" Ryan asked. "Who is he?" There was a pause. "We don't really know. Folks in town say it's the old caretaker. He went missing years ago, used to live in that cabin before we bought it. They say he still walks the woods looking for the people who never came back for him." "Why didn't you mention that in the listing?" "If I did," the man replied, "no one would ever stay there." Ryan hung up. It's been 3 years since that weekend, and they've never gone back. Baxter passed away last winter, and Melissa still refuses to talk about that night. Sometimes, though, when Ryan's alone, he'll hear a soft tapping on the windows. He tells himself it's just a tree branch in the wind. But he doesn't check. Not anymore. Story 3, the basement door. When I bought the house, it came with a warning. Not from the realtor, not in any formal document, just a quick, awkward sentence from the elderly couple who had lived there for 40 years. "Just don't open the basement door at night." I thought they were joking. The husband chuckled nervously, and the wife shot him a look that made my skin crawl. They didn't explain further, and I didn't press. I was too excited. It was my first home. A charming colonial-style house on the edge of town with creaky wooden floors, stained glass windows, and yes, a dark, dusty basement. The house was old, but had character. It was perfect for me and my golden retriever, Max. The first few weeks were quiet. I worked remotely during the day, took Max for long walks in the evening, and slowly made the house feel like home. But then, I noticed something strange. Max refused to go near the basement door. It was located in the kitchen, an old wooden thing with chipped paint and a black iron handle. Every time I walked past it, Max would pause, lower his head, and growl, a deep, guttural sound I'd never heard from him before. I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe a rat or something was down there, until one night when I heard the knocking. It was soft, almost polite. 3 knocks, slow, measured. I thought it was the wind, maybe a tree branch hitting the side of the house. But then Max started barking, hackles raised, tail stiff. I went to the basement door and placed my ear against it. Silence. But as I turned to walk away, I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door. A cold wave of air hit my face, smelling like mildew and something else. Iron, maybe. Blood? I turned on the light. The bulb flickered weakly, casting long shadows down the steep stairs. Nothing. Just boxes, old furniture, cobwebs. Max didn't come near. He stayed at the edge of the kitchen, growling low in his throat. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept dreaming of someone standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at me. The next few nights, the knocking continued. Always 3 knocks, always between midnight and 3 a.m. I tried ignoring it. I tried sleeping with music on. Nothing worked. One night, frustrated, I grabbed a flashlight and stormed down the basement stairs. I shouted. Nothing. But then, the flashlight flickered, and I saw something. For just a second at the far end of the basement, by the old furnace, a figure. Tall, thin, skin stretched too tightly over its bones. Hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, and it smiled at me. I fell backward on the stairs, scraping my arm. Max barked like mad upstairs. I scrambled up and slammed the door shut, bolting it from the kitchen side. The next morning, the basement door was wide open. I didn't remember unbolting it. I know I didn't. Max was hiding under the bed, trembling. I called a locksmith and asked for a reinforced bolt. He showed up, took one look at the door, and said, "You've got cold spots here. This wood's warped from moisture. You sure nothing's living down there?" "No, just boxes," I lied. He installed a heavy-duty lock, the kind you'd see on a safe. That night, I didn't hear any knocking. I thought maybe it was over. Then, I found the note. It was taped to the inside of the basement door. I only saw it because I had to get some Christmas decorations and opened the door during the day. A yellowed piece of paper, written in shaky handwriting. Open quote, "It feeds on attention. Don't talk to it. Don't open the door. Don't listen." Close quote. That night, the knocking returned, but louder, angry. Desperate. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. Max howled and backed into a corner. I sat in bed, shaking blah, clutching a baseball bat like that would help. Then, the doorknob started to turn. The bolt held. But I heard breathing inside the door. The next morning, I called a contractor to seal the door completely. I told him I wanted the basement inaccessible. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. They sealed it with concrete and drywall. No more door, no more basement access. That night, silence. I thought I was free. Until last week, when I came home and found Max staring at the kitchen wall where the door used to be. He was whining softly. Then, without warning, he lunged at the wall, scratching, biting, barking like he wanted to tear it open. And then I heard it, muffled behind the drywall. Knock, 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 and a whisper, low and sibilant. Why did you stop listening? Story 4. The cat that watched the ceiling. When Lily moved into her new apartment, she was excited to finally have a place of her own. The space wasn't huge, just a modest 2-bedroom on the second floor of an older brick building in a quiet neighborhood, but it was hers. The ceilings were high, the windows let in good light, and the rent was manageable. It was perfect for her and her cat, Juniper. Juniper was a quiet tabby who had always been calm and affectionate. She wasn't the type of cat to dart at shadows or hiss at nothing. That's why, on the third night after moving in, when Juniper sat frozen in the living room, staring up at the ceiling with her eyes wide and ears pinned back, Lily noticed. At first, she thought it was a bug, maybe a moth or a spider. She got a chair and stood on it, examining the area Juniper was fixated on. Nothing. Not a speck of dust. Juniper didn't move. Her eyes never left that spot. "Okay, you weirdo," Lily said with a nervous laugh, stepping down and petting her. "Nothing's there." But Juniper didn't react. Her muscles were tense. Then she let out a soft, strange growl. Low. Guttural. The sound made the hairs on Lily's arms rise. It was a sound she'd never heard from her before. That night, Lily dreamed of water dripping in a silent house. She was walking barefoot down a hallway she didn't recognize, lit only by moonlight, and something unseen followed her just out of view. She awoke at 3:14 a.m. to Juniper growling again, staring at the same corner of the ceiling. The next morning, Lily called the landlord and asked if anyone had ever mentioned a pest problem. He said no. She asked casually if anyone had died in the unit. There was a long pause. Then he said, "Not in that unit. No. Why do you ask?" Lily didn't explain. What could she say? My cat is mad dogging the ceiling? Over the next week, Juniper became obsessed with the ceiling in that corner of the living room. She would sit in the same spot at the same time every night, around 9 p.m., and stare. Sometimes she hissed. Sometimes she ran out of the room entirely, tail puffed and back arched, as if something had lunged at her. Lily started avoiding the living room after dark. One night, Lily invited her friend Sam over. She didn't say anything about Juniper's behavior. She just wanted company. As they sat on the couch chatting and watching a movie, Juniper entered the room and immediately stopped in her tracks. Her eyes shot to the ceiling. She started trembling. "What's wrong with your cat?" Sam asked. Before Lily could respond, Juniper let out the same deep growl and bolted out of the room. "Okay, what the hell was that?" Sam said, uneasy now. Lily explained everything. Juniper's obsession, the growling, the dreams. Sam, who was normally the skeptic, didn't laugh. Instead, she said, "You ever hear of cats sensing things? Like spirits or whatever?" Lily nodded. She had. But it all felt too vague, too unprovable. Still, the behavior continued. That Friday night, things escalated. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch around midnight. A crash in the kitchen woke her. Juniper was already awake. She stood on the coffee table, tail straight, eyes glued to the ceiling. But this time she was walking backwards slowly, as if something was coming closer. The ceiling creaked. Lily froze. The creak traveled, like footsteps across the ceiling toward that same corner. The ceiling light flickered, and then Juniper shrieked. Not a meow, not a growl, a shriek. She flew off the table and dove under the couch. Lily scrambled to her feet. The room was cold, unnaturally cold. Her breath fogged in the air. The light above her buzzed and flickered again, and for a split second, the corner of the ceiling looked dented, as if something was pressing down from above. Pressing hard. Lily grabbed Juniper and ran to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She didn't sleep. Neither did Juniper. The next day, Lily did some research. She found an old news article from 1982. The building had once been a boarding house. There had been an incident. A man had suffered a severe mental breakdown and barricaded himself in the attic space for 3 days. He claimed something in the walls was watching him. He was found dead in the crawl space. No sign of trauma, no drugs in his system. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest under distress. No one had lived in the attic since. Supposedly, it had been sealed. The attic space, Lily realized, would have been directly above her living room. She contacted a local medium out of desperation. The woman came the next evening. She walked through the apartment slowly, then stopped in the living room. "There's a presence here," she said calmly. "It's bound to this spot. It watches." She looked at the ceiling. "It doesn't like cats." That night they performed a small cleansing. The medium-lit sage spoke soft words, placed salt in the corners of the room. Juniper remained in Lily's lap the whole time, shivering, but not looking up. Afterward, things got better. The cold spots stopped. The footsteps above ceased. Juniper still avoided the corner, but she no longer stared at it. No growling. No hissing. Lily stayed in that apartment another 6 months before moving. Even now, in a new place with no strange noises or cold drafts, Juniper will sometimes stop and glance at the ceiling, just for a moment, and Lily holds her breath every time she does. Story 5. He follows you at night. When I adopted Blue, my golden retriever, from the shelter, they told me he'd been found wandering the outskirts of a small town. No collar, no microchip. Just a dog with sad eyes who flinched every time someone stepped behind him. I figured he'd been abused or abandoned. I thought love, patience, and time would help him heal, but I was wrong, because Blue didn't flinch out of trauma. He flinched because he knew something was following. It started 3 weeks after I brought him home. I live in a quiet suburb outside Seattle, the kind of place where you can hear crickets at night and neighbors wave to you from their driveways. Blue settled in quickly, ate well, slept at the foot of my bed, loved our evening walks, but there was always something off. Every night around 11 p.m., Blue would sit by the back door. Not whining, not barking, just sitting, waiting, staring into the darkness of our backyard. His body tense, ears up, then he'd growl, low, guttural, almost like he was warning something not to come closer. At first, I thought it was a raccoon or maybe a coyote, but when I turned on the back porch light, there was nothing, not even the rustle of leaves. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door and stepped outside. Blue didn't follow. Instead, he backed away, tail tucked, growling louder. I stood on the porch listening. Nothing. But then I felt it, a shift in the air, like something had moved past me too quickly to see, but slow enough to stir the hairs on my arms. It wasn't cold. It wasn't wind. It was presence, an electric hum under the skin. I stepped back inside and locked the door. Blue stopped growling. That was the first night I dreamed of him. I couldn't remember the face, just tall, shadow thin, watching me from the corner of the street lamp's glow. I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding, always at 3:33 a.m. I told myself it was stress. My job was demanding, and maybe I was projecting, but Blue wasn't imagining it. He stopped going into certain rooms, wouldn't step foot in the hallway after dark, sat in front of my bedroom door like a guard, always watching, always listening. Then came the scratches. Not on Blue, on my walls, thin, vertical lines, starting low and getting higher, as if something was testing how far it could reach. I scrubbed them off, only to find them again the next morning. Closer to my room, deeper. I bought cameras, set one up in the living room, one in the hallway, one facing the backyard. The footage was inconclusive. Nothing moved on screen, no shadows, no figures, but the audio caught something. Footsteps, soft, slow, followed by Blue's growl and whispering, not in English, not in any language I recognized, just breathy syllables, like a lullaby sung under one's breath. The whisper would crescendo, then stop abruptly, right as Blue barked. I sent the footage to a friend who works in audio engineering. He analyzed the frequencies and found something odd. There's a second voice, he said, under the whisper, a much lower register. You can't hear it without enhancement. He boosted it and sent it back to me. It said, "He follows you at night." That same phrase, repeated 3 times. I didn't sleep that night. The next evening, I packed an overnight bag and took Blue to my sister's place across town. I didn't tell her everything, just said I was feeling anxious in the house and needed a break. That night, at her place, Blue was calm, slept by the window, tail occasionally thumping. I almost believed it was over. Until my sister came into the guest room at 4 a.m. and said, "Why is your friend standing in the driveway?" I shot out of bed. There was no one there, no footprints in the dew-covered grass. But Blue was growling at the window again. We went back home the next day. I tried saging the house, tried salt lines at the doors, even tried sleeping with the lights on. Nothing stopped it. That night, I saw him. I woke up needing water. As I walked past the hallway mirror, I caught something in the reflection. Behind me, a man, unmoving, dressed in black, his face empty, no eyes, just darkness. I spun around, no one, but the mirror still showed him, standing right there. I smashed it, glass everywhere, Blue barking. My heart thudding so loud it drowned everything out. When I looked down, the shards had rearranged themselves into letters. Mine. That was the last straw. I called a spiritual consultant. Not a priest, not a medium, just someone people in fringe forums recommended. She came that evening, walked through the house with her eyes closed, and stopped in the living room. "This isn't a haunting," she said. "It's an attachment, not to the house, to you." "Why?" I asked. She pointed to Blue. "He's been keeping it at bay. That's why he was left in the woods. Someone tried to rid themselves of it by passing it on to him. But dogs aren't enough. It's looking for a permanent host." She handed me a charm, told me to wear it always, told me to burn everything Blue had from the shelter, blankets, collar, tags, anything that carried the past. And she told me this: if he ever stops growling, that means it's already inside. It's been 6 months since then. I've moved twice, changed my number. I wear the charm like a second skin. Blue is still with me, still sleeping by the door, still growling every night at 11. But last night he didn't growl. He whimpered, then crawled under the bed. And I swear, when I turned to look in the mirror, I saw it smile. Maybe the animals in these stories weren't just reacting to nothing. Maybe they were warning us about things we were never meant to see. Whether it's a low growl at an empty corner or a terrified stare into the dark, our pets might just be our first line of defense against the invisible. So tonight, when your dog barks at the hallway or your cat refuses to enter a certain room, don't shrug it off. You might want to listen and never look back.